You're listening to the Support Ed Learning Podcast, where we challenge the status quo of education and reimagine what learning should be. I'm Dr. Joe Sebestyen, and in every episode we dive into critical thinking, Bloom's taxonomy, educational innovation, and how AI is shaping the future of learning. Whether you're a teacher, parent, policymaker, or lifelong learner, you're in the right place to rethink, reshape, and revive education. All right, welcome to the Supported Learning Podcast, episode 1. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Sebestyen. I'm really excited to get this off and running, and welcome, just everyone. Really excited. First couple episodes, we're going to kind of set the framework, if you will, of what this podcast is. And so I'll just kind of go into my background to tell a little bit about that and how, what the mission of Supported Learning Podcast is. So again, my name is Dr. Joe Sebestyen. I have a doctorate in educational leadership from the University of Pittsburgh. I've been in education for over 15 years now. Going in on 16 years, I have been a teacher, a social studies teacher, and an administrator for now 8 years. Actually been an administrator longer than I've been a teacher, which is kind of scary to think about it. And I'm actually a business owner. I started a tutoring company back in 2021 and have grown it since then, using a Facebook group, been called a couple different names, Athletes in AP History and now ACP exams, specifically focused on helping kids ace their AP exams. We've grown to over 5,300 members and have helped over 500 students ace their AP exams. So really excited about that, and kind of wanted to talk about the APs on this episode because of the time of the year. It's March, and AP exams are right around the corner, and we have a lot of parents reaching out to us in our business, but we want to talk about it at the intersection of critical thinking and why APs are so important, and why I think that part of what we're doing as educators is a little broken, because a lot of kids are missing out on opportunities to earn college credit. So we're going to explore that today and discuss that a little bit in detail. So first and foremost, if you're new to the educational system in America, welcome. It's, I don't want to call it a hot mess, but there's a lot going on. And the education system, K through 12, there's not really a universal curriculum. There's been a lot of chances and opportunities to try with Common Core, but the advanced placement curriculum, AP, is one of the closest ones we have to a national curriculum in 9 through 12. So advanced placement does stand for college, basically college level courses. They are advanced courses that are taught in the high school where kids can earn college credit if they score high enough on their cumulative final exams, known as the AP exams. The problem is most kids, about 40 to 50%, don't pass those exams, failing to earn credit, failing to save thousands of dollars in tuition. And what I have discovered over the years in tutoring and teaching them is that a lot of kids, a lot of smart kids that take APs, about 30% of the country takes APs. They're the top echelon of students, but not everyone does well on the exam. So those top kids, 50%, are not earning college credit. And the real big disconnect is what is taught in the class versus what is assessed on the exam. Now, the exam measures critical thinking skills. There's no direct response questions. There's no way to memorize questions and answer them, because they're critical thinking based. They apply knowledge to scenario based questions, stimulus based questions, writing questions. And if kids don't actually know how to think through those problems, they go in underprepared. Why this is a problem is most AP classes are taught to cover the content, because the content is massive and there's a lot of content that kids have to master in order to be successful in those AP courses. So kids spend the entire year, teachers want to get that content covered before the AP exams, but they don't go that much further down in terms of depth of understanding because there's just simply not enough time. It's hard to do that on a personalized level. But some, I'm not saying all do this, some do.
There's definitely some that do. It's just the depth of understanding that kids need to know, plus the personalized learning component, is not going to be there in a college course. And there's a lot of assumptions that our teachers make that their kids are smart, they'll figure it out, they'll know how to do it. And that works for about 50% of the kids. The other 50% might not prepare well, might not know how to take the test, might not know how to do a cumulative exam, might not be able to practice within the time limits. So they struggle on the exams, which is why there are test prep industries out there, including the company we do as well, that offers a one-on-one or a group experience to get kids ready. But the AP courses do tell you exactly what is on the exam, just not directly. There is something called the course exam description, which is what the teachers use. That has the curriculum on there. But there is also the AP course at a glance that anyone can Google. Both those things you can Google. And you can look at the units that your kids are learning and what is going to be on the test. The problem is there's no practice questions associated. It's just the units, the topics within the units, and the critical thinking skills associated with them. So we have to do better as educators teaching kids how to think. Now, there are a lot of college-based programs like Harvard and a couple other Ivy League schools that have projects into the case system, making thinking visible and teaching teachers how to teach kids how to critical think. But it has become a bit of a lost art that we're not doing that. And so what ends up happening is we go through the content, we do a little bit of test prep and hope for the best. And unfortunately, the biggest thing that I guess is really mind-bending for parents is that the AP grade, the grade in the class, has no direct correlation with how well you're going to do on the AP exam. So your kid could have an A all year and could still fail the exam, which is crazy, but it happens. And so if your kid's not doing anything outside prep-wise, they're probably going in underprepared, especially if they're a first-time test taker. And even though it's just about to be April, it's almost too late to do a really good thorough review. That's not to say don't do nothing, do something. But we start our kids out between 8 and 12 weeks out for that very reason, that we want to build up these skill reviews before we start practicing the test. So at a minimum, you're going to want to have to do something involving some kind of review book, Princeton Review, Barron's, 5 Steps to a 5. Have your kid read that, have your kid practice the tests just under the time limits so they can actually see what it's going to look like at a rigorous level. That's like foundational step one. If you can hire a tutor to work with them, do some outside prep to get them ready, because what is on the line is college credits, and done thoroughly, done comprehensively. An AP student can save tens of thousands of dollars in college tuition. They can maybe not only miss out their first years. I've heard kids missing out 2 years on college in terms of having enough credits to go in as partial sophomore, as a junior. That adds up when college costs are going nowhere but up. It is like inflation to the max, especially at the top colleges and universities that end up costing $200,000-$300,000. These elite schools, you're going to want to have something that you can either earn scholarships for with that GPA boost, but also get direct credit transfer with the college transfer credits from the AP exams. So, I was a history teacher for 7 years. We taught IB history of the Americas, international, and baccalaureate. It's a different curriculum than College Board. And what was distinctly different is that there are no multiple choice questions, which is interesting. It's all writing based. And I had no idea what I was doing in my first year teaching, or that. Now it was my third year teaching. So I actually had good classroom management skills, but I didn't understand what IB was, how it was different from AP. Luckily, I had a colleague 10 years my senior that knew what he was doing. But the 2 other people in that department that were also teaching IB before I got there would do their own thing. They would just teach content. They really wouldn't actually teach the skills of the test.
This episode is brought to you by Supported Tutoring, where we don't just help students get better grades, we help them become critical thinkers. Whether it's mastering AP exams, maximizing college applications, or building lifelong learning habits, Our expert tutors focus on critical thinking, confidence, and real growth. Head to supportedtutoring.com to find the support your student deserves.
They would just teach content. They really wouldn't actually teach the skills of the test. As a result, the scores were abysmal. Paper 3, which had to do with IB History of the Americas, was a pass rate of 20%. Now, when I got there, I was put in sections were split up. Him and me were the only IB history teachers. I was brand new. So I ended up shadowing him the first year and basically watching what he does, mirroring my resources, my curriculum to match his exactly, because I didn't know any better. And basically embraced whatever he was doing and try to make it my own. But we really had total curriculum alignment in how we delivered the materials. Now, we were two different teaching styles, but we got along really well and all of our materials matched. So it was kind of like 6 sections of class, 2 different teachers, but all in the same. What that allowed us to do is really keep us in balance, not only in pacing, but evaluating assessments. And since it was a writing course, we approached it, or since it was a writing assessment, we approached it as almost a writing course through history. So we really focused on the skills of teaching good, solid foundational writing. We called our strategy APEC. Every good paragraph has assertion, proof, explanation, connection. And we gave kids visual frameworks to think through that. And so, I can go more in depth about this probably when we have him on, I'll interview him. But it was an interesting process to make that thinking visible, to understand kids where they were right and where they were wrong. And over time that added up. So we were able to take kids, a large group of kids, from being poor at writing to being good at writing through the course of the year, where they can consistently deliver high-level essays that would be able to get the questions correctly on the IB exams to think through the problems, which they would take a year later. Fast forward a couple years, we had brought that pass score to a 90% pass rate, which was awesome. Some of my most successful students that I still stay in contact with to this day were able to get college credit. One of my most successful students, she got enough IB credit to skip a whole year at Columbia, which was fantastic. So you think of that in terms of like what was the magic there? And it really foundationally came down to good communication between teachers, aligning curriculum and resources, but teaching the thinking skills that mattered. And we explicitly did that alongside of teaching the content. And because of that, our kids were able to have that success. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't happen in AP classes, but it doesn't necessarily happen the way it does happen in IB, because in IB, you don't have to cover an entire, like for U.S. history, you don't have to cover the entire course of U.S. history, even though we did because it was a tested subject in Virginia. We were able to go in depth on certain topics, went 8 weeks on the Civil War, 5 weeks on Cold War, 5 weeks on civil rights. We're in a AP class, you're blitzing through content. So you really don't have the time to go in depth. So when we don't have time to go in depth, it's really hard to go deeper on our assessments and on our thinking. And that's where I see the biggest gap is. Now, how do you do that in APs? Because obviously some kids are getting it. A lot of the times it's integrating the assessments into the curriculum, into the daily motion, into the weekly motion of the course. So that means that the kids are testing FRQ conditions, the kids are testing MCQ conditions of their AP exams, but that we give timely and accurate feedback. Now, up until recently, that has been a problem, because to grade 30 essays in one class times 3 times 4 is 90 to 120 essays. It does take time. AI is actually allowing us to grade it faster and give better feedback, but it's not perfect yet. But there are tools out there that teachers are using. But there has to be a combination. One, the teachers still have to teach how to do it. There has to be some direct input on teaching the exact frameworks to align to the rigor of the rubrics. So teach the frameworks first, then evaluate, then give feedback. And that loop, if that happens repeatable, will improve kids' abilities to do well on the AP exams. And that's foundationally what we do when we help kids with their test prep. The third thing that they need to do is practice within time constraints, which is really hard to do because the AP exams are 3 hours. And I don't know of any high school class that goes 3 hours, longest maybe 90 minutes. But you can break down the sections to time. The problem is now you're giving up multiple days to do that. But I think it is important that kids practice within those time constraints and understand how they can operate, get timely feedback, and what they will do. So the big thing is that teachers need to teach the test-taking skills alongside the content, the curriculum. They need to evaluate those on those authentic assessments more, and they need to give more timely feedback within the time constraints of the test to have successful AP students. So there was a 2006 study. Why doesn't this happen right now? There's a 2006 study done by Harvard and Virginia University, Harvard and the University of Virginia, where they found that AP classes don't adequately prepare kids for college because there's too much focus on memorization of facts and content knowledge, not actually applying thinking skills. Well, that has changed since 20 years. AP has gone through multiple revisions. The problem is some of our veteran teachers have not changed the way they teach it and evaluate it, and some newer teachers are too new to understand or have been properly trained on how to do it. So these are important factors when considering that most kids are going into these AP exams underprepared. So what you need to do as a parent, if you're listening, is making sure that you have those conversations with your kids, checking in with them. A lot of them are overwhelmed, starting with at least getting them some additional support, whether it be an AP prep book or potentially a tutor or a test prep coach, to start reviewing those things, because you are leaving a lot of money on the table with kids if they don't end up earning credits. They're still going to be successful. They're still good students. It's just this, if you're taking AP classes, is a wonderful opportunity to earn college credits. And so with that, I think I'm going to wrap up right now. This was our first episode, just having a conversation with myself. If you like what you're hearing, subscribe to our podcast, keep listening. We'll keep on producing more and more episodes, and we're going to be bringing on some really special guests soon as well. But thank you for listening. This has been the Supported Learning Podcast. Good evening.
Thanks for joining us on the Supported Learning Podcast. If today's conversation inspired you, challenged you, or sparked a new perspective, be sure to subscribe and share with a fellow changemaker. We'll be back soon with more voices, more insight, and more ways to elevate the future of learning together. Until then, keep learning and keep pushing the conversation forward.